The work week is almost done. I pray that you have been blessed in this time of Daily Manna as I have been. It's been great sitting here breaking bread, talking about the story of Stephen, the first martyr, and we've been blessed. We've talked all week and seen where Stephen has been defending himself, and in the midst of his defense, Stephen takes the council on a history lesson, and the reason for the history lesson really is to show how rebellious they are. They were just as rebellious as their ancestors, and here they are in the midst of Stephen. So yesterday we talked about Joseph. On the first day of his defense, he talked about Abraham and the promise, and then he talked about on yesterday Joseph and the favor that God had upon his life. And so we move further into the defense on today. So today we'll cover Acts chapter 7 verses 17 through 29, and I'm reading out of the Message version. Hear these words. When the 400 years were nearly up, the time God promised Abraham for deliverance, the population of our people in Egypt had become very large. And there was now a king over Egypt who had never heard of Joseph. He exploited our race mercilessly. He went so far as forcing us to abandon our newborn infants, exposing them to the elements to die a cruel death. In just such a time, Moses was born, a most beautiful baby. He was hidden at home for 3 months. When he could be hidden no longer, he was put us outside and immediately rescued by Pharaoh's daughter, who mothered him as her own son. Moses was educated in the best schools in Egypt. He was equally impressive as a thinker and an athlete. When he was 40 years old, he wondered how everything was going with his Hebrew kin and went out to look things over. He saw an Egyptian abusing one of them and stepped in, avenging his underdog brother by knocking the Egyptian flat. He thought his brothers would be glad that he was on their side and even see him as an instrument of God to deliver them. But they didn't see it that way. The next day, 2 of them were fighting, and he tried to break it up, told them to shake hands and get along with each other. Friends, you are brothers. Why are you beating up on each other? The one who had started the fight said, "Who put you in charge of us? Are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian yesterday?" When Moses heard that, realizing that the word was out, he ran for his life and lived in exile over in Midian. During the years of exile, 2 sons were born to him. So we've shifted from Joseph, and now we're in the story of Moses. And one of the first things that I think I talked about it yesterday, and I'll highlight it a little bit today, that in the midst of them being in the children of Israel, being in this foreign land, they grew. So yesterday we learned that with Joseph's family, there was about 75 that came to Egypt at the time so that Joseph can take care of them. Remember, we talked about Joseph's forgiveness of his brothers. And so about 75. And now as we begin the text today, it says that the population of people in Egypt had become very large. They were very large. So they grew in the midst of them being in this alien land, this place, this foreign land. God allowed them to grow as a people from 75 to a very large group of people. And then he talks about Moses and the grace that God had on Moses' life. And grace is the love and the mercy given by God. Each and every one of us have God's grace. When we wake up in the morning, God's grace and blessings and mercy are upon us. As a matter of fact, we have breath in our bodies, and we have the function of our limbs because of God's grace and his mercy and his love that he shows. And God had tremendous grace and mercy and love for Moses, because here he is in the time where the text says that they were abandoning their newborn infants. Moses is hidden for 3 months, and then he's given the privilege not to grow up in the wilderness, but he grows up in the place and in the palace. He grows up in Pharaoh's house. He's reared by Pharaoh's sister, and he becomes a great athlete and a great thinker. God cultivates his mind in the midst of this experience that he has growing up in Pharaoh's house. And then at the end of his time, towards the end of his time in Pharaoh's house, he finds himself wondering how his brother, his kinfolks are. And we know the story. We saw the movie, the Ten Commandments. We saw Charlton Heston play Moses and him part the Red Sea and how he had to go off into exile. Well, here he is. Moses finds himself in the midst of a fight, breaking up a fight, coming upon a fight with an Egyptian abusing one of his kinfolk, and he kills the Egyptians. And his guilt propels him or pushes him away from Pharaoh's house into the wilderness. And I believe Moses' wilderness experience was that gestation period that he needed to birth God's purpose in his life. Sometimes we don't know why we're going through storms or wilderness experiences. And if we can just hold on and see how the end of that thing is going to be, God has a purpose and a plan. And we'll learn tomorrow as we get further into this story of what Moses did and how Moses delivered his people. We'll see what that wilderness experience and that guilt that Moses carried into the wilderness with him, how it propelled him to be an instrument to be used by God. We're out of time, but we're not out of word. Looking forward to coming back tomorrow and continuing the story with you. Be blessed. Have a wonderful afternoon.